we prepare for our last speaker, I will point out to you these steel rods you see stretching up there from one side to the other of this church. They were added later to make sure the church was stable, windstorms like today, but primarily earthquake. It came along a little later to contribute to the stability of this structure, as you are doing today. Coming along a little later than 1889 and helping us maintain this wonderful structure. So thank you for your participation. And now we'll move on to our last presenter.
Next up, we have Etzel. He was a bachelor that lived his entire life here in Sweden. His great-nephew, Miles Dawn, will be portraying Vince wearing Vince's hunting hat and flannel.
Hey everybody. Well, it's sure nice you all took the time to stop by here today and hear a few of us tell our stories. This is a bit out of the ordinary for myself. I'm not one for the spotlight, but I hear it's for something important, and I do have something good to say and something connected to the shrine just behind me outside, just about a stone's throw from here, that I'll get to a little bit later. I don't want to get ahead of myself. My name is Vince Etzel, Vincent John Etzel to be specific, and I was born on January 25th, 1920. To my papa Peter Etzel and mama Philomena Duman. I grew up on Fernridge Road where I was number 5 of 8. So there are a few of us running around, you could say. Oldest to youngest, there was Leonard, Louise, Tilly, my buddy Ted, Al, Phil, and Pete. A lot of pictures up here show us being wild, crazy, and all the different things we did, which I'll get to momentarily. There was plenty of us around and plenty of us to do chores around the house. There was lots to do at the house or out in the field, but to have a little bit more fun, we did go out Saturday night and go hunting. We did enjoy doing that. The rule, though, with Mama was Sunday morning breakfast table before church. So as long as you had that balance, you were doing just fine. We also liked going out with our hunting dogs up by Mill Creek Prairie, going cooning. That was a lot of fun. Later in life, I explored all sorts of different kind of recreation. I enjoyed skiing quite a bit. I liked bowling. I was a pretty avid bowler. I even brought my own bowling ball here. I will say in heaven, the bowling lanes are pretty nice. The shoes always fit, the lanes are always open. I was a pretty good shot. With my 22, I entered competitions and won awards and that sort of thing. I also ended up being pretty successful in business and farming, and I would attribute that possibly partly to the fact that I was top of my class in 8th grade at Fernridge School, District 12. Just don't pay too much attention. There were only 3 of us in the class, but still top of the class. Top of the class. I lived at 380 Church Street for 59 years. I first moved into the house in 1949, but before myself living there, my mama, Philomena, lived there. And in fact, it was that house that was built for her because she was living on the farmhouse up off Fern Ridge. She had to move to make room for all of us kids as we were, growing our own fields and growing our own kids. She had 2 conditions though before she moved into town. One, it had to be next to church. So check, it was on Church Street, got that covered. It's that blue house right off Church Street, about 2 stones throw behind me. And number 2, it had to be a house that had a chicken coop. Okay, so she had a priority straight. Church, chicken coop. The thing about the chicken coop is she was checking the chickens one morning and slipped and fell and got hurt real bad. And due to those complications of that fall, she ended up going through an unfortunate death. May she rest in peace. I ended up joining the United States Army. And in the States, I served in the bitter cold of Alaska and the sweltering heat of Kentucky. I also served a tour in the European theater during World War II. It was in Alaska where I strengthened my habit of praying the rosary, and I felt the Holy Spirit often. Very often and very clearly. I heard the Holy Spirit call me to join the paratroopers, which was the catalyst to take me to Kentucky, which is where they were training at the time. The blessing between traveling from Alaska to Kentucky is I was able to stop by at home, up at the farm. And so I had heard my papa wasn't doing so well health-wise, so I wanted to go and check him out. Turns out as I was arriving, he was in real bad health and passed away shortly after my visit. I do count this as a great blessing and consolation, though, because in the 1940s, with no cell phones, emails, Snapchats, the TikTok-y thingies, it was rare to have this chance to be there at the right time, in the right place, to see my father pass away. A great consolation. While in the military, I learned a lot. I learned some very practical things around heavy machinery up in Alaska, keeping transportation moving during those frozen temperatures. I also learned how to practice my faith wherever I may be. Both came in handy when I came back to the farm, the machinery part and the prayer life. But wherever you may be practicing your faith, I saw that firsthand in Germany. So I was stationed there in the European theater, and oftentimes one of my jobs was I was on the night shift. I would be on a machine gun and mounted truck in the dead of night as enemy airplanes and bombs were going off right above my head. You would hear eerie sounds, not knowing if it was an enemy paratrooper dropping in right next to you. It was a time for prayer, that's for sure. I was very motivated to pray during those nights, that's for sure. Even in these war times, I found chances to go to church, to go to Mass, because oftentimes during the bombings of these towns, the churches were the only structures left standing. So we would go to Mass, a little different because we'd have our rifles with us in the pews, which looks a little different nowadays. While in a combat zone in Europe, I had a vision, very vivid, full of detail. To summarize, I saw a dark figure, a creature, a spirit that was pointing toward a house and roads. Everything looked very similar, almost identical in my dream to where we were stationed at, my platoon was at the moment. And it was a warning not to go down a certain road at a certain time to avoid an ambush. And I attribute this vision keeping our platoon going down the wrong road at the wrong time that kept us away from an ambush. My life would have been cut much shorter if not for that vision. People who knew me well will say I was a man of great faith and prayer. And frankly, that's not for me to say so much, but it's hard not to believe in the power of prayer and faith when you've experienced some of the things I just shared with you just now. During those times in Europe, I had times of deep prayer, and I prayed, God, please, if you return me home safe to the farm, I will pray to you every day. It's the least I could do. And so I did, and I returned home. And I was very grateful to come back home, to meet up with my brothers, my brother Al, my brother Ted, and my brother Pete. We would farm together. Al and Pete both served. Al in the Navy and Pete in the Army, and Ted would keep things going at the farm while we were away. It was really good to farm together again. The Etzel brothers farm is what we called ourselves. We farmed a long time together. All the way up until 1974, we raised strawberries, we raised corn, we raised cherries, prunes, and green beans, of course, and then livestock, sheep, hogs, cows, and of course, horses. I loved horses. I have a special affinity for horses. This is my saddle right here. It even has my name down by the stirrup. I didn't ride in on a horse, I will admit, to this event, but I did ride in maybe on more of an angelic breed, you might say. I rode horses everywhere. I rode horses elk hunting. There's a picture up there, me doing that. I rode horses to confirmation class with my old buddy Elmer Etzel way back when. In 1975, the Etzel brothers, we started to farm independently, but we still helped each other out whenever one needed a helping hand. I managed and was active in my farm all the way until I was 87 years old. Besides farming, which is of course very important in this community, so was music. I enjoyed playing music. My family enjoyed playing music. And I don't know about you, but that song that I walked in, that was a little different from some of the earlier talks I was giving. That was an old waltz. And that was me. That was me playing with the Etzel band. The Etzel band is up here. We cleaned up pretty good for a bunch of farm kids. I think we looked pretty dapper. I don't say so myself. It wasn't uncommon for us siblings to break out our instruments and play at get-togethers, weddings, Christmas events, all that sort of thing. Even my great-nephew remembers me playing at Christmas parties at Anthony Hall, which, great to have Father Anthony here. Great to hear that story of how that hall got its name. We even cut a record as a band, and myself, I was more of a guitar player. This is my guitar up here on Stereo King, and I appreciate my nephew Ron keeping it in really good condition all these years. Definitely take a look at it. I looked a little younger back then, the picture down at the bottom. Now, about music, one thing most people don't know is how we learned how to play music as a bunch of kids. Not the most, the way maybe people learn nowadays. We learned at the foot of our mama. She was getting dinner ready. The thing was, there's this window of time every day where it was dinner time, almost. Dinner was cooking, but Papa wasn't in from the field, so we didn't start eating until he got in from the field. So all us little kids, lots of energy, not a whole lot of patience. And so my mama had to find ways, creative ways to keep us busy. So she'd pull out the pans, the pots, the spoons, and she'd teach us how to keep a beat and a rhythm, and that's what we would do. Probably pretty darn loud, and so she had help from the oldest daughter, Louise. And that's one kind of interesting detail. Louisa didn't play as much music as the rest of us because she was too busy, wrangling us around. But that's how we got our start, and how all the way up into our 70s we would pull out our instruments. We'd always have them at the ready, and we could play music by ear. Music is a beautiful thing and a big part of my family. Well, I'm glad you kept with me this long. I did keep the best story for last. I did mention I spent many years living in this community, this parish in particular at St. Boniface, and the Knights of Columbus St. Anthony Council 2439. I was a member for